Dick Van DJK is more than just a Hollywood legend. He's a man who made millions smile with Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and the Dick Van DJK Show. With that big grin and endless energy, he became a symbol of joy for generations. But behind that charm, Dick has faced his own share of battles, heartbreak, health scares, and deep personal struggles. And now at 99 years old, he's made a new confession that has left fans completely heartbroken. It's raw, it's real, and it's not easy to hear. Join us as we look back at his incredible life and the emotional news that's left fans in tears. A small-town boy with big dreams, Dick Van DJK was born on December 13th, 1925 in West Plains, Missouri. His full name is Richard Wayne Van DJK. His mother, Hazel, worked as a stenographer, and his father, Lauren, was a salesman. He wasn't born into fame or fortune. In fact, he grew up in Danville, Illinois, a regular town with regular people. That's where his dreams started to grow. Dick was an only child. He had a younger brother, Jerry Van DJK. Later in life, Jerry also became an actor and even played Dick's brother on the Dick Van DJK Show. Their bond went from childhood to the big screen, and fans loved it. Van DJK's last name comes from Dutch roots, but his family tree also includes English, Irish, and Scottish ancestry. Interestingly, he was related to John Alden, a passenger on the famous Mayflower. So even though Dick came from a humble place, his roots stretched far back into American history. In high school, he joined the a cappella choir in the drama club. That's where he first felt the magic of performing. At one point, he thought about becoming a minister, but the stage called him louder. Just before graduating, he left school to join the U.S. Army Air Forces during World War II. He wanted to become a pilot, but he was rejected a few times for being underweight. Still, he didn't give up. He was finally accepted, not as a pilot, but as a radio announcer. Later, he moved to the Special Services and started entertaining troops across the U.S. He served until 1946. Even though he left school early, he eventually got his high school diploma many years later in 2004. The long climb to the spotlight. After the war, Dick didn't step into Hollywood right away. In the late 1940s, he became a radio DJ at WDN in Danville. His voice and humor caught people's attention. That job opened new doors. In 1947, a pantomime performer named Phil Erickson encouraged him to start a comedy act. Together, they created Eric and Van, the Merry Mutes. Their act was silent, using mime and lip-syncing to records. They toured the West Coast, performing in nightclubs. Eventually, they moved to Atlanta and landed a local TV show called the Merry Mutes. His early TV days began in New Orleans at WDSU-TV. He started as a solo comedian and then became the host of a comedy show. This was just the beginning. Dick made his first national TV appearance in 1954 on Chance of a Lifetime with Dennis James. He then showed up on several shows like The Phil Silvers Show, The Pat Boone Chevy Showroom, and The Polly Bergen Show. Slowly but surely, he was making his way up. A friend from his Army days was now working at CBS. That friend helped Dick land a 7-year contract with the network. During this time, Dick even worked as a news anchor on the CBS Morning Show with the legendary Walter Cronkite as a newsreader. It's surprising to think that the man who made people laugh also read the morning news. Broadway breakthrough and big screen beginnings. In 1959, Dick finally made it to Broadway. He starred in a revue called The Girls Against the Boys, which opened at the Alvin Theater. The show didn't last long, just 16 performances, but it gave him much-needed experience and exposure. The real breakthrough came with Bye Bye Birdie in 1960. Dick played the lead role of Albert Peterson. The show ran for over a year and became a hit. Critics had mixed feelings about the production itself, but they praised Dick's performance. The New York Times called him likable, which would become a word often used to describe him. For his role, Dick won the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a musical in 1961. His success on stage led to his role in the film version of Bye Bye Birdie in 1963. He played the same character, Albert J. Peterson. However, he wasn't happy with the movie version. The story had shifted its focus away from his character. Still, The film did well at the box office. He starred alongside Anne Margaret, Janet Leigh, and Maureen Stapleton. Variety magazine praised him, saying he had a showbiz know-how far more extensive than his television outings communicated. His work in Bye Bye Birdie put him on the map in both theater and film, but the next chapter of his career would turn him into a household name across the country, the rise of a TV and movie legend. From 1961 to 1966, Dick starred in the Dick Van DJ Show. He played Rob Petrie, a comedy writer, balancing work and home life. The show was a major hit and won several awards. Dick himself won 3 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. His natural charm, comedic timing, and physical humor made him unforgettable. This wasn't his only hit. He also made guest appearances on popular shows like Columbo in 1974 and The Carol Burnett Show in 1977. He returned to television many times, starring in the new Dick Van DJ Show 1971 to 1974, Diagnosis Murder 1993 to 2001, and Murder 101 2006 2008. No matter the decade, Dick always found a way to connect with audiences. He didn't stop with TV. In 1964, he played the lovable chimney Sweetbird in Disney's Mary Poppins. Though his British accent was often joked about, fans loved him in the role. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a musical or comedy. He also starred in other hit movies like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968, The Comic, 1969, and earlier Bye Bye Birdie, 1963. Even in his later years, he kept acting. You might have seen him in Dick Tracy, 1990, Curious George, 2006, Night at the Museum, 2006, and its sequel in 2014. He even made a return in Mary Poppins Returns in 2018. Through every role, Dick Van DJ brought laughter, energy, and heart. He made us smile when we needed it most. And while his career was full of bright lights, it all started with a boy from a small town chasing big dreams. But behind the spotlight and success was a man with a real personal life, one filled with love, loss, and lessons learned along the way. A love life filled with highs and heartbreak. Dick Van DJK's personal life was just as full as his career, but it wasn't always easy. In 1948, he married Marjorie Willett on a live radio show called Bride and Groom. It was a unique moment, and the couple went on to have 4 children together, Christian, Barry, Stacy, and Carrie Beth. But the marriage didn't last forever. After a long separation, the couple divorced in 1984. By that time, Van DJK had already started a relationship with Michelle Triola Marvin. Their romance began in 1976 and lasted more than 30 years until Michelle passed away in 2009. Their relationship, however, came with guilt. Dick later admitted that their affair played a part in the end of his first marriage. He once shared that the guilt made him feel like he was writhing inside. Even after all the ups and downs, love came into his life again in 2012 when he was 86 years old. He married a makeup artist 46 years younger than him. They had met 6 years earlier at the SAG Awards, and despite the age gap, their bond brought a new kind of happiness into his life. But love wasn't the only thing close to his heart. Dick kept his family involved in his work. His son Barry, along with grandson Shane, and Carrie appeared with him on the show Diagnosis Murder. Family meant a lot to him both on and off screen. However, life also brought pain. In 1987, his granddaughter Jessica died from Reye syndrome, a serious illness in children. That loss deeply affected him. Dick used his fame to raise awareness, starring in public service announcements to warn parents about the dangers of giving aspirin to children. Faith, family, and a scary escape. While Dick Van DJK was known for dancing and making people laugh, faith was also a big part of his life. He didn't just act. He also taught Sunday school at the Presbyterian Church. He was even an elder there. Throughout his career, he stayed connected to his spiritual side. He read works by famous theologians like Martin Buber, Paul Tillich, and Dietrich Bonhoeffer. This shows that his beliefs and values were just as strong as his stage presence. But sometimes life throws surprises. In 2013, at age 87, Van DJK faced a life-threatening moment. While driving on the freeway in Los Angeles County, his Jaguar caught fire. A passerby quickly pulled him out of the burning car. Luckily, Dick was not hurt, but the car burned all the way down to its frame. It was a close call, one that reminded everyone how fragile life can be. But even then, he didn't stop moving forward. In fact, Van DJK remained active in other areas too. He wasn't shy about his political beliefs. He endorsed Bernie Sanders in both the 2016 and 2020 Democratic primaries. Speaking about Donald Trump in 2016, he said, "I haven't been this scared since the Cuban Missile Crisis." He added, "I think the human race is hanging in a delicate balance right now." In 2024, he endorsed Kamala Harris for president, showing he still kept an eye on the future even in his late 90s. Quiet battles with alcohol and addiction. Behind the smile, Dick Van DJK lived with personal struggles that the world didn't see for a long time. In the 1960s and 1970s, the press wasn't as quick to report on private matters. That allowed celebrities like him to hide their pain. Van DJK struggled with alcohol for many years. On Oprah, Where Are They Now?, he shared why he started drinking. "I was very shy with strangers. I couldn't talk to people," he said. "And I found if I had a drink, it would loosen me up. But what started as something small grew into a serious problem." He told The Guardian in 2016, "I was an alcoholic for 25 years, which inevitably impacted on family life." He later realized that he was repeating the same behavior he had seen in his own father. "My father often came home drunk after lengthy road trips," Dick said. "My mother threatened to walk out unless he quit, which he did." Seeing that pattern helped him seek help for himself. In 1972, he checked into a hospital and spent 3 weeks in treatment. Since then, he has stayed sober. In fact, by 2013, he said he had been sober for almost 30 years. He hoped that by speaking up, he could help others dealing with addiction. There's even a rehab center in New York named after him, the Dick Van DJK Treatment Center. His honesty gave strength to many others facing the same struggle. But his health problems weren't gone. A mysterious illness. In his later years, Van DJK started dealing with a strange and frustrating health problem. It began with a pounding sensation in his head, something he described as a heartbeat or pulse throbbing every time he lay down. This went on for 7 years, and doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. He went through many tests, MRI, CAT scan, spinal tap, but everything came back normal. Still, the pain didn't stop. In 2013, he took to Twitter and asked his fans for help. "My head bangs every time I lay down," he tweeted. "I've had every test come back that I'm perfectly healthy. Anybody got any ideas?" The support from fans was huge. Many people replied with advice and shared similar experiences. The pounding in his head became so bad that he had to cancel events and appearances. He was even told not to fly. It affected his sleep and energy. One news outlet said he was advised to stay home and rest in Malibu until they could find the cause. Finally, in May 2013, Van DJK tweeted again. He believed he had found the source of the problem. "It seems that my titanium dental implants are the cause of my head pounding," he said. He asked others if they had gone through the same thing. Some fans replied with similar stories. Though it was a strange cause, he finally had an answer, but living with that mystery for so long had already taken a toll. Still, he kept going and kept smiling. Still dancing, still smiling. Even with his age and health struggles, Dick Van DJK never truly slowed down. In 2018, he appeared in Mary Poppins Returns. At 93, he shocked everyone with a surprise dance scene. "I gotta jump up on a desk and do a dance number," he told people. It surprised everybody, but nobody was as surprised as I was. They did several takes, and he enjoyed every second. His energy left fans in awe. His joy and movement reminded people why they had loved him for so long. In February 20th, 23, he appeared on The Masked Singer. His performance touched hearts around the world. He sang When You're Smiling, a song chosen with help from his wife. He explained, "So we picked out one which typifies me. She's the one that came up with it, and I like the song too." The message was simple. When he smiles, the world smiles with him. And that's how Dick Van DJK has always lived his life. through pain, through joy, and through change. He keeps finding a reason to sing, dance, and make people smile. But behind that joyful smile was a man who carried silent pain. As magical as his movies looked on screen, real life told a very different story. The darkness behind the magic of Mary Poppins. On screen, Mary Poppins was bright, joyful, and full of wonder. But behind the curtain, the cast, especially Dick Van DJK, faced heavy personal struggles. While fans enjoyed the cheerful songs and magical scenes, things weren't always so cheerful behind scenes. Van DJK played Bert, the lovable chimney sweep, with a big smile and a famously bad Cockney accent. But while he danced and joked for the cameras, he was hiding a painful secret. During the filming of Mary Poppins, Dick was battling alcoholism. He was surrounded by parties and heavy drinking. Everyone drank heavily. There were big parties every night, he told the Telegraph. Dick would often show up to work with hangovers, and dancing while feeling sick was even harder. It got so bad that he admitted to feeling suicidal. You get suicidal and think you just can't go on, he said. He described that time in his life as terrible. But then something changed, like a blessing. He said, the alcohol stopped tasting good. I wasn't getting the click. Slowly, he found his way out. Today, I wouldn't want to drink for anything, he added. His journey to sobriety wasn't easy, but he came out stronger. After overcoming his addiction, he returned to TV in 1993 with diagnosis, murder, and fans welcomed him back with open arms. Years after Mary Poppins, Van DJK once again surprised the world. In 2023, he appeared as a gnome on the U.S. version of The Masked Singer. His performance brought back memories and emotions. He sang When You're Smiling by Frank Sinatra and later sang Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious from Mary Poppins. Judge Nicole Scherzinger broke down in tears. It's an honor to have you on our show, she said through sobs. The whole world loves you so much. Dick responded with his usual humor. It was really dark in there. I couldn't see anything. He joked about performing in the heavy costume. His appearance reminded everyone that Dick still had the spark. He was 97, but his spirit was as strong as ever. But soon after, fans began to worry. 50 years ago, humanity launched a machine into the void, barely more powerful than a calculator, guided by courage, curiosity, and a cassette tape. That machine, Voyager. Yet half a century later, it's still out there, still transmitting, still watching. But what it just sent back, no one saw it coming. Not NASA, not the theorists, not even the skeptics. What Voyager 1 just discovered beyond the known reaches of the solar system defies everything we've come to expect from the interstellar frontier. It's not just a data anomaly or a faint whisper of radiation. It's structured, it's persistent, and according to top engineers monitoring it, it shouldn't exist. Something impossible has just entered the record of human history. And the story begins with a signal that should have never been heard again. Stay with me until the end, because once you understand what Voyager 1 has found, your view of space and our place in it will never be the same. For months, Voyager 1 had been silent. NASA's engineers feared the worst. Communication had been garbled, full of corrupted telemetry and signals that led nowhere. But then, against all odds, the probe whispered back. Engineers managed to reestablish a fragile communication link using decades-old code written for a system that predated the internet itself. That alone would have been a miracle. But what the team found buried within the data stream was something much stranger. It wasn't just typical plasma readings or magnetic field fluctuations. There was a pattern, regular, rhythmic, almost biological in its cadence, like a heartbeat, a pulse coming not from Voyager, but from somewhere near it. At first, it was dismissed as cosmic interference. But this signal had structure. It wasn't just noise, it was information. And as NASA decoded the data, they realized it wasn't bouncing off planets or moons. It was echoing from beyond the heliopause, from interstellar space. Voyager 1 has long since left the influence of the sun. Since crossing the heliopause in 2012, it has floated in the dark sea between stars. But something about this recent transmission shattered the accepted models. The plasma density was far higher than predicted, and it wasn't acting randomly. Instead, it formed a wave, a slow, rising crest of charged particles that surged, paused, and surged again. But here's the twist. These surges matched Voyager's outgoing communication schedule. In other words, something was responding, not in words, not in radio language, but through motion, through charged particles, through space itself. And when scientists layered Voyager's readings across time, they noticed something terrifying. The plasma waves weren't just mimicking our signals. They were matching our trajectory. Voyager wasn't drifting alone anymore. It was being followed. Or worse, guided, digging deeper. NASA reanalyzed archive data, and it wasn't just this year's transmission that was strange. Subtle anomalies have been building for over a decade. Minute changes in magnetic field orientation, slight distortions in signal strength at precise intervals, all dismissed until now as random interference. But in hindsight, it was something else entirely. A path, a line drawn through space, with Voyager 1 moving along like a bead on a string. And then came the most stunning part, the signal spike that occurred exactly on the anniversary of Voyager's launch. It was faint, barely distinguishable from background noise. But when processed through modern quantum-enhanced filters, it revealed a cascading frequency drop-off. Mathematically elegant, like an echo or a countdown. Something out there had marked Voyager's journey, had measured it, was keeping time with it. Whether it was nature playing a cosmic trick or something far more deliberate, no one could say. But one thing was clear. Voyager wasn't just floating in space. It was on a path someone or something new it would take. Then came the discovery that left even the most skeptical voices silent. Engineers noticed a recurring anomaly in the background of Voyager's latest transmission, a hidden harmonic, one that persisted even when the main carrier frequency changed. This hidden signature was buried so deep it took weeks to isolate, but once extracted and enhanced, it formed something truly bizarre, a tone pattern that mapped into a three-dimensional spiral, a Fibonacci structure repeating endlessly. No random natural process produces such precise mathematical beauty. And yet there it was, in Voyager's own language, embedded in the void. Now, this wasn't a direct message. No hello, no coordinates. But the structure of the signal mirrored the golden record Voyager carries. A spiral, a map, a pulse. Scientists are still arguing over what it means, but one theory is rising above the rest. This wasn't an accident. This was a reply, once the spiral harmonic had been detected. Independent researchers around. The globe began running simulations to replicate the phenomenon, but something uncanny emerged. Every time a waveform was mirrored across its center axis, essentially flipping the signal backward, it produced an inverted frequency pattern, but not just any inversion. The resulting signature resembled the outgoing pulse Voyager itself had transmitted 38 years ago during a deep space calibration burst no longer listed in active telemetry. That frequency wasn't supposed to matter. It was never meant to be echoed. Yet here it was, reflected back at us like a cosmic boomerang from deep space. This realization sent shock waves through the astrophysics community. If Voyager's forgotten signal had returned in this form, it implied one of two things. Either interstellar space was capable of preserving and redirecting precise data structures over vast time and distance, or something out there remembered, something with awareness or, worse, memory. This was no longer a signal. It was a reflection with intent. And then everything stopped. On June 5th, 2025, Voyager 1 fell completely silent. No signal, no heartbeat, just silence. NASA classified it as a temporary outage caused by deep space conditions. But those tracking the event knew better. It didn't behave like a natural dropout. The silence lasted exactly 12 minutes and 1 second. Not 11, not 13, precisely 12:01. That level of precision made no sense for an analog failure. But here's where it gets stranger. During that blackout, deep space radio telescopes across 3 continents reported receiving brief bursts of ultra-low frequency pulses, not from Voyager's known location, but from a different vector, approximately 2.7 degrees off its axis. When plotted, those vectors pointed not into deep space, but slightly inward, back toward heliosphere, as if something were relaying a signal from behind Voyager's path. These pulses were short, sharp, too fast to contain information in traditional terms. But when slowed down and converted into sound, What emerged was a pattern eerily similar to a heartbeat. And this time, it wasn't echoing Voyager, it was matching ours. As the decoding teams pushed forward, a researcher from CERN made a haunting discovery. By compressing all of Voyager's recent data packets into a single stream and applying a fractal noise reduction algorithm used in quantum encryption, she found a segment of data that visually resembled an ancient script, glyph-like structures embedded deep in the signal noise, resembling a sequence, a cycle, even possibly a language. These glyphs weren't linguistic in the traditional sense. They were mathematical, geometric, but they followed rules, repetition, variation, symmetry. More astonishingly, the pattern resembled symbols carved into certain Paleolithic cave sites across Earth, specifically those theorized to represent cosmic alignments or stellar maps. This convergence between human prehistory and data from the edge of interstellar space sent shockwaves through a growing underground movement of astroarchaeologists who began asking, have we seen this before? What if what Voyager discovered wasn't new, but ancient? Then came the final act in this unfolding mystery. An international deep space observation team correlated Voyager 1's trajectory with faint energy spikes recorded years earlier by the James Webb Space Telescope. Spikes previously dismissed as distant gamma events. But when remapped using Voyager's newly decoded data as a reference, a chilling alignment emerged. A fixed point in deep space, aligned with the path of the probe, emitted tiny bursts of radiation at predictable intervals, almost as if waiting. This spot, now dubbed the Watcher Point, shows no star, no mass signature, no known body, and yet something that moves just beyond detection. Some theorists now believe Voyager wasn't merely moving outward. It was heading directly into a detection field, a region of space with embedded intelligence or machinery far beyond our understanding. And if that's true, then Voyager's journey wasn't random. It was a meeting, an encounter, planned long before we knew what we were even looking for. We thought Voyager 1 was drifting alone into the dark, a tin can carrying songs and greetings sent into the abyss like a cosmic bottle tossed into the ocean. We thought it would die in silence, lost to the stars. But we were wrong. What it just revealed through plasma echoes, geometric spirals, ancient glyphs, and impossible alignments isn't a malfunction, a coincidence, or a trick of data. It's a signal, not in words or sounds, but in patterns. It speaks in the only language the universe truly understands: frequency, symmetry, time. And Voyager didn't just detect it. It became part of it. Because maybe this wasn't just exploration. Maybe it was initiation. Maybe Voyager didn't stumble upon a mystery. Maybe it was summoned. And if the signals now reflect us, if the echo follows our rhythm, if the path was known before we even launched, then we must ask the question no one wants to ask. Did something know we were coming? And more disturbingly, is it finally ready to answer? If this shook you, if your mind is now racing with questions we were never meant to ask, don't let this end here. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe Voyager has truly encountered out there? And if you want to stay ahead of whatever comes next, subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and join us as we follow Voyager into the unknown.